I had no idea about any of this. I feigned ignorance of the whole Blue Jay team.
I don't think you feigned it. I think. Hello and welcome back to Dodgers Debate. I'm Jack Harris, the LA Times Dodger beat writer, along with my very, very soon to be horribly wrong columnist, Bill Plaschke and Dylan Hernandez.
It's not over.
Who have been calling a World Series all year, and suddenly the Dodgers are instead one loss away.
I thought it was going to be a sweep, so I'm eating a lot of crow right now. The Dodgers.
Yeah,
I had no idea Toronto was this good. I had no idea there was this grinding. I had no idea about any of this. I feigned ignorance of the whole Blue Jay team.
I don't think you feigned it. I think.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I was ignorant, and so far I've been so dead wrong.
So far, Plash, but after they blow this World Series, you won't know them as not the Blue Jays. They'll be the Choke Jays.
I tried to warn you guys. We previewed this series. Said this Blue Jays offense is tough. They're grinding.
You barely warned us. You weren't that into it that much.
Yeah, you weren't. I felt like you were just kind of playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, maybe a little. I did not see this coming, but in part because, I did not see the Dodgers starters, and Blake Snell in particular, struggling in this way. Now, tonight was better than Game 1 in some ways. He was a little more unlucky, but the real killer is he starts the game trying to establish his fastball. Yeah, boom, boom. The first one he gets ambushed, the second one misses a spot to Vlad Jr., and suddenly, on this night where everything was going to be about the offense, they change up the lineup. They drop Mookie Betts, as Dylan predicted, advocated for last night. They take Andy Pages out. They put Alex Call in there. And then by the first time they come to the plate, they're already down 2 runs against a pitcher who was locked in. Probably as good of a pitching performance. I mean, it's right up there with what we saw Snell do in Milwaukee, with what we saw Yamamoto do earlier in this series.
22-year-old kid, 12 strikeouts.
Yeah.
12 strikeouts. It's a rookie World Series record.
You know whose record he broke?
Don Newcomb.
Don Newcomb.
Dodgers could use him now.
Well, they got Yamamoto going. They'll be fine.
Well, they'll be fine, but it's
as long as they don't have to go to the bullpen. The bullpen's terrible.
Or the bullpen.
Right. I mean, Yamamoto's going to pitch another complete game.
Third straight.
Third straight.
All right, well, if he goes a complete game with 1 run against, that might not be enough. Because, the offense, I want to dig in on the offense.
Okay.
Because Savage was really good.
Yes.
Really good. He threw 3 pitches out of 104. 3 and a 2-1, 2-0, 3-1, or 3-0 count. It was unbelievable. He put the Dodgers on the back foot. They took tentative swings. They were in between. The problem is that the Dodgers could not adjust. And this has been a theme going back to the second half of the season when they were really inconsistent at the plate, where when a pitcher is executing against them, and now granted, this guy's got better stuff than your average big league pitcher, even if he is young and inexperienced. It's a high delivery. He had the slider working. The splitter was good. He was dotting the fastball. But they couldn't adjust. And tonight, they couldn't even really come up with an answer of how they adjust.
Had 3 starts before the postseason. You can't adjust to that? Come on.
Well, and that's the problem. And that's kind of the inherent issue, I think, with this team is that, you have some guys whose swings are off. Clearly, Mookie Betts is not feeling it. They move Will Smith up in the lineup, and right from the jump, he misses one of the few hittable pitches that they had, a fastball over the plate. It kind of starts to set the tone. Kike Hernandez described it like the at-bats are snowballing on us. And when I asked him, it feels like you guys are in between. You're trying to protect down below. You're not really committing to taking convicted swings on fastballs over the plate. How do you fix that? He goes, we'll see. They got 1 off day to try to fix it. What is your level of faith that we see a different version of this Dodgers offense when they face Kevin Gausman on Friday?
I think Kevin Gausman is their ace, isn't he? He's one of the few guys I've even heard of.
Yeah. What Max Scherzer?
I gotta say, I don't really see it happening.
I think it's going to be, again, right? I mean, I'm going to say what I said last night, which was that they're going to need the starter to basically outpitch the other guy and win a 3-2, 2-1 ball game.
You think they're scoring 3 runs right now?
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of wonder too. Just kind of going back to this larger picture theme of you mentioned kind of the rut they went through in the regular season. This is kind of an older team. I do kind of wonder if the games have kind of started to, pile up on them. I mean, they got rid of, in the previous rounds, right? They finished those things off pretty quickly. But kind of one thing is just I don't know, I do kind of wonder. I'm looking at, because because some of these guys aren't, especially like, take a guy like Freddie Freeman, right? Who obviously knows what he's doing. He's got a nice short swing, right? That's, I would guess if something's kind of off there, it's more like physical, right? Rather than kind of like mental. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's mechanical when you say physical. And
Right. Well, then, it kind of gets into, okay, is something kind of wrong, or is like fatigue starting to kind of set in and make things a little bit off?
Yeah, but that's with.
Yeah, no, I know that happens kind of all the time, right? But I'm wondering again, though, does this like the fact that a lot of their key guys being on the older side?
All right, but how do you explain how much?
Because they were also sloppy on like defense today, right?
But that's different.
I can't stand Teoscar Hernandez in left right field. I can't stand watching him out there.
That did not help matters.
We've seen it all year. We saw it again. Cost him a run today. It's maddening.
And it took some momentum away after Kike Hernandez got the one home run on one of those very rare, and here's the problem, right? That at bat from Kike is the at bats they needed all night. He got a first pitch strike. He lays off 2 good pitches below the zone that most guys would have swung at. He forces Savage to come up in the zone with a fastball, and he hits it. And to your point about fatigue or the mechanics, like that's all kind of true, but that's also like every team that tries to win a World Series faces that. I think the talent level, even if they're not all at 100% physically, should be they have plenty to score more than, what is it now, 4 runs over 29 innings.
They were 10-1 before this series.
Yeah, and I think
I don't understand.
Well, but that's what I'm saying though. But like at some point, I mean, fatigue is like a cumulative thing, right? And it's at some point
I point more at this is a team that too often this year has been either had a bad approach at the plate or not been able to fix it. And it was something they spent a lot of time on in September trying to be very deliberate about. We need to take better team at bats. We need to get guys on and move them over. Tonight that did not happen. The couple times they had guys on base, Tommy Edman pops one ball up and rolls into a double play.
Yeah, but at the same time, the team at bat thing, right? I mean, you there's obviously you can kind of define that multiple ways, right? It's kind of like, okay, well, kind of do what the Blue Jays did today, and okay, we're just going to like ambush the fastball, whatever, right? And then there's kind of the okay.
But that's my point. That's an approach.
But
and I think
there's kind of the the moving guys over, that type of stuff. They're not that team, right? This team was kind of built to slug.
But you gotta earn. You're not gonna be slugging if you're allowing yourself to fall behind in every single count.
Right.
And that's
so many wild swings, so many wild hacks.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm getting to. Right. Like team at bat, there's an identity that you need to have, and this team has not been able to consistently find what that identity is offensively. If it's going to be the slug, okay, but then you got to work the kind of at bats that give you the chance to do it. What I think you're seeing is a team that's trying to protect in 2 strike counts, trying to protect on stuff below the zone, but also trying to take big swings when they have pitches that they can punish. I mean, we've heard Dave Roberts and multiple players talk about being in between. And when you're in between, it's like you don't know what you're trying to do. And that's why I think it's less of a talent problem and more of a what do we want to be as a team, especially when guys are not all clicking. Like that's when your identity has to come through. That's what's happening with the Blue Jays, is they got guys that can expand the zone, have contact skills, put pressure on you. I mean, on the Teo ball that he misplayed, but that was a curveball almost in the dirt. But they have the kind of team that's going to take a shorter swing on that kind of pitch, put it in play, and see if they can get you to do something wrong. And this Dodger team all year to me, at least in the second half of the year, could not really consistently figure out what they wanted to be.
But I kind of go back to something Mookie Betts said earlier this year about himself, right? That whatever he was doing in the past, that worked for him in the past, that he's not that guy anymore, right?
Sure.
And again, like, because it's shown, like, statistically, right? Like, the guys that are the best hitters are the guys that can wait the longest, right? Mm-hmm. So it means they have the best bat speed, they have, like, the best pitch recognition. Those are, like, physical traits that obviously erode over time. If not, like, Barry Bonds would still be playing right now, right? Sometimes
Right.
And maybe what I'm kind of getting at is that the fact that this identity crisis is taking place because these guys aren't sure. They're at this weird stage where they're kind of close enough to being who they were, but they're not quite sure of who they are right now, and then you kind of get stuck in between.
So I'll grant you that on Mookie Betts, which is a big part of the problem. When they don't have Mookie Betts going, it's a very different looking offense.
Because I would put like Freddie in there too, honestly.
Yeah, but I
right?
think
like,
Freddie's still been.
Yeah,
Freddie's been kind of at this level of production for a lot of the year, and they've been able to work around it. He still like tonight, his first at bat, he goes up there, he forces 8 or 9 pitches, and if everybody was doing that, it's a different game.
He's had one big hit this series. Freddie has.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that.
But you know what I mean? Though, like
Yeah.
that guy OPSing whatever, like over 1,000, and this. I mean, look, obviously he's a professional. He's the consummate professional hitter, right? Like you said, he knows how to work at bats and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think one guy is a guy that you can build an entire team around. The other guy is kind of like, okay, if you have like 6, 7 guys like this, like you said. But I mean, that's like kind of the top of the line for that type of hitter right now.
Yeah, and it actually, I think this is an interesting point, and it's kind of, I'm not sure we're in total disagreement here. I think it's more, they're not taking the at bats that match maybe where they are at, right? And maybe part of this is because like guys, could take bigger swings and fall behind in the count and fight their way back a little bit easier in the last couple of years. Because you're right, like it's an old, like Teoscar Hernandez, Max Muncy. I mean, Tommy Edmonds more physically limited, but Kike Hernandez, like there's a lot of guys that might be on that border of I can't be quite the same guy I was before. To me, the issue is that's been happening all year.
Right.
It's not like it's just happening now.
Right, but I think part of the problem and the reason it's such like a complicated issue is that like salary goes into identity, right? What you've accomplished in the game goes into your identity, right? The fact that it took Roberts this long to move Mookie out of that spot, right? And right, and I don't think it was a bad argument, by the way. The fact that, like, hey, he's Mookie Betts, right? You keep him there at that number 2 spot. Well, at that point, you've kind of altered the reality, right? Because, look, if we didn't know who any of these guys were, we didn't, right? You couldn't see the names on the backs of their jerseys. I mean, the lineup is Ohtani, Smith, and probably Kike batting third.
And even Kike, like, before the home run had been struggling.
Right, but, like, that's kind of what you're looking, right? And but you kind of have to... the team dynamics, who's going to follow who in the clubhouse, like, right, all these things kind of factor into this. And it's not just a matter of like, hey, you're not that guy anymore. We're going to drop you. You're going to be batting 6 now. You can't do that.
All right, so if the Dodgers lose, is it the biggest disappointment in Dodger history?
Yeah, because because it was so...
Defending champions, most money in baseball.
Yeah, well,
$500 million.
I think what's going to make this thing so bad, right, is that
it's going to be so bad.
It was such a clearly identifiable problem. Like we knew what the problem was.
We've
been talking about the bullpen
6 months.
I mean, everybody knew, right? The combined $80-something million that's not even on the roster right now between Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates. The fact that they missed on those guys. The fact that they didn't do anything at the trade deadline.
Which tonight. That situation tonight was like I think the clearest example.
How do you bring that kid in the game in that situation?
They don't have anybody else.
Right, and all of their losses so far, right?
All of them.
It's all the turning point in the game was always when they pulled the starter. Guys are on base. They don't have that guy that they can go to right now. And again, I really hate to bring Vesia into this at all. Obviously, again, I life is more than baseball, right? But that does hurt them, right? Because he is one of those guys that you can bring him on with guys on, because the only other option today in that inning that they had today, right? Because people are like, well, why did they bring that guy in? It's like, well, who else are you going to bring in? The only other option is like Roki Sasaki, right? And
even to be fair, even in that situation, to me, that situation is more reflective of they don't have like the right-hander, and they've known since Evan Phillips had Tommy John, we're going to need to add another right-hander.
We all knew they blew it at the trade deadline. We all wrote it. We said it a million times.
And maybe
now it's finally coming to bite him in the butt.
Yeah, and like the one guy they get, Brock Stewart, came with injury questions. He goes down. They put trust in Blake Trinan. He has, he was not even reliable enough to come into that spot, given the way he's been pitching. And it's something kind of like the offense that was easy to overlook in the first 3 rounds of the playoffs with the way the starting pitching was. But in a series where you've got a team
no margin for error
that's pushing you and putting pressure on you, and they can expose some of these flaws. Same thing with the defense, which the defense had been up and down earlier in the postseason. But it was easy to overlook. And then tonight, it's not just a Teo play. It's the 2 double plays they can't turn early that forced Blake Snell to throw 10 extra pitches. 10 extra pitches that would have been very helpful to have in that 7th inning when they have to go and turn to the bullpen instead. It's almost like an inverse of last year's World Series, where the Dodgers are talking about, we know if we put the Yankees in these kind of situations, they're going to collapse because we've seen their flaws on tape this year. And the Blue Jays, intentionally or not, are doing the same thing to the Dodgers right now. Is we know that this team is not perfect, and if we can put together the kind of at-bats that define our team identity, which is very clear, and get some good pitching.
That's the whole story right there.
Yeah, I mean,
So are the Dodgers done?
I don't think they're done, and the
don't
reason,
think so either,
because I said last night I thought they were going to have to win 2.
But they're on life support.
Or win the next 2. I think the difference is, as we wrote about pregame today, if there is a Game 7, it's probably more likely now that Shohei Ohtani is an opener, because he's going to he's going to pitch one of these 2 games in Toronto. Well, I mean, unless they have to use him in Game 6 to save their season at this point. But if I think you feel good about Yamamoto in Game 6, and then in Game 7, Ohtani can open, Tyler Glasnow can come out of the pen, which I feel a lot better about that kind of construction. He could also pitch in Game 6 if they need.
I feel a lot better if the game was here and not in Toronto.
But that's the problem. So I at least think there's a pathway, and suddenly if the Dodgers win Game 6, and they could feel better about themselves. But this is a really, really, really tough spot to be in, and is real. I mean, especially after Game 3, to win Game 3 and turn around and lose these 2 games by a combined 12-3 is just brutal.
Well, in retrospect, right? Like, given what we've seen from the bullpen since, and even before, I guess, in Game 1, the fact that they won Game 3 is almost like miraculous. Given the way they played, this series should be over right now.
And you know why? And we didn't even really hit on it. I think enough on that night is because the Blue Jays were playing with their B lineup by the second half of that game, because they had taken everybody out. And tonight they still didn't have George Springer. Right. He would have been available to pinch hit. Like, he might be back in the lineup. Like, this is dicey for the Dodgers. The only thing you feel good about is that you have, I think, a clearer pitching matchup advantage in the next game. I think adjusting to Kevin Gossman the second time seeing him is going to be easier than your Savage was.
I'm sensing doom. I'm sorry. I'm feeling doom.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
We'll see.
They just wanted to make it interesting after this boring postseason. All right, I got to run to the airport. I'm trying to catch a flight tonight.
All right.
Yeah, I'm